Are looking for studs this weekend at the Bermuda Championship in PGA DFS because it's not exactly the most dazzling field this weekend by any means. So what we're going to do today is look really hard, overturn all the stones we can, and try to find golfers looking for studs. Different kind of business we've got going on here. We're going to be doing that today and overturning all these rocks, and then also praying that maybe we find one value play who is worth rostering. So let's dive on in and get you set for the Bermuda Championship. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gdula. He is the managing editor for numberFire.com. Brandon, they are out in Bermuda this weekend. Shockingly has Bermuda greens. How are you doing today after your Patrick Cantlay outright hit last week?
Yeah, Cantlay was a good hit. I mentioned throughout the podcast, actually.
You mentioned it twice, yes.
I liked him as a bet, but not really for DFS, which is always unfortunate whenever you're not really on the winner for DFS. But hopefully, some listeners got on Patrick Cantlay as an outright.
And like the thing is too, like there are some golfers in situations in different fields where like they just make more sense for betting than they do for DFS. And I think it made sense for Cantlay because like he was not in the same tier from a safety perspective as the top end studs. And like the salary was kind of there. So like it made sense why he would fit in one better than the other. Yeah,
I mean, we see that a lot. I obviously, make bets. I give out bets for Golf Digest. But then I focus on DFS here. So it doesn't always match up. And I feel a little weird recommending certain golfers for DFS, but maybe more for betting. And I think that kind of might be the case this week because we have at least two studs with Brendan Todd and Will Zalatoris. But no,
we're stretching that word there, bud.
Are we?
I think we are.
Okay. Well, for DFS, I think they're a lot easier to play than they are to bet at 11 or 12 to 1 wherever they are right now.
I agree with that, but that doesn't mean I necessarily want to feel great about them for daily fantasy.
You hate Brendan Todd.
I mean, he's the cover boy for the YouTube version of this podcast today, and I was the person who recommended the cover boy. So
I wonder where this come from.
I mean, yeah, Cal asks me, and I say, let's go Brendan Todd, because Brendan Todd is the only guy who's ever won at this course. I mean, I guess like as far as the regular events go. So let's dive in here and break down the Bermuda Championship. That's happening a lot recently where I just say words stupidly. I don't know. It's weird. Happy football season. But they're at Port Royal GC this weekend. It is 6,828 yards, a par 71. So very much not a long course. And they did play here last year. It was not a featured event. I don't know what the word is. I think he called it an opposite field event.
Yes.
Is that right? I'm going to go Oppo Taco.
Would you call it yesterday like a shoot-off?
I don't know. I don't know what it's called. Like I've heard the word and I was going to ask Brandon about this, but I forgot. So it's an Oppo Taco event. So there's no shot link data from last year, and the field was not great, but at least, we do have some course history to look at. We do have some golfers who have played here. We can see which archetype of golfer performed well. We're not going to go through course history today because there's only one event. And again, the golfers there may not have been that great, outside of Brendan Todd, of course, the winner. But we do have at least some data we can look at. There are under 130 golfers in the field, so about half the field will make the cut for this week. Once again, there is a cut as opposed to the past 2 weeks, so make sure you are cognizant of that as you are filling out your lineups. Brandon, when you look back to last year at Port Royal GC, what things stood out in the absence of shot link data?
Yeah, it's always tough without shot links. You have to go through traditional stats if those even exist. And we do have a few. No distance, but we do have things like fairways, greens, and regulation. And that's about it, honestly. But last year in his win, Brendan Todd ranked 4th in fairways gained, 12th in good drives gained, which is either a fairway gained or if you miss the fairway but still get a green in regulation, that's a good drive. So it's basically ball striking. And then he was 10th in greens regulation gained. So of those three stats, I just ran a correlation with golfers and their total strokes gained. Greens in regulation gained was the strongest correlation by a good margin. I say this every time we don't have shot link data, but greens in regulation is basically the stat I look to most because it's the closest thing we have to strokes gained approach or strokes gained ball striking. So that matters to me. So I'm going to put approach at the top of the list again. Fairways mattered, but they weren't necessarily, I think, as vital as what we could extrapolate as the iron play. So off the tee play is going to matter. You're going to need to hit fairways in order to go low here. But I think iron play is still above the driver this week. Of course, you'll need to putt well on these Bermuda greens. You'll need to make birdies. The birdie rate, I mean, the leaders in birdie rate are almost always just the leaders in the event, which is what you'd expect. Brendan Todd won at 24 under. Harry Higgs was 20 under, and then 4 more were 18 under or better. So, I mean, we need golfers who can make birdies. It's not enough to make pars. So I've actually been putting birdie or better rate on this list frequently. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to keep it a really simple list: strokes gained approach, strokes gained off the tee, Bermuda putting, and birdie or better rate gained.
I did wind up going with fairways gained as being one of my stats because, like you said, like it popped last year. And looking back to last year and the golfers who finished well, the average rank for them for the full season in driving distance was 131st. The average rank in driving accuracy was 70th. So a major split. And usually you don't see that. Like a lot of times when I decide to put accuracy on my sheet, it'll because accuracy was slightly ahead. Here it was like half as far as the season long ranking. In part because a lot of the big drivers probably weren't there, if I had to guess. So, like, it's naturally going to select it that way. But also, it's a short course. It makes sense. Like you said, fairways gained did matter. So I was fairways gained. I also have birdie or better rate because, like you said, things will go low here for sure. So I think that if you can find a golfer who is accurate but gets birdies, like, we don't want guys who are just accurate but don't do a lot with it. But if you can find someone who can pair a good driving accuracy with a good birdie or better rate, I feel like that's going to be a pretty key combination for this week.
Yeah, I say it, or at least I think about this every time we get to a course where accuracy matters. Accuracy alone is never enough. Just like distance alone is never enough. Right. You need to have more than that, but I do think that being able to hit fairways is going to give you a leg up. And with the course being so short, it really puts everybody in play, and that makes it a lot harder to predict because a lot of golfers, I mean, these guys are great. These guys are good, I should say. And
I think it's okay to say great, given that they're all, kind of at least allowed to be on the PGA Tour.
But I'm pretty sure that the PGA Tour slogan was, these guys are good, for like a few years. I kind of tune that stuff out, but I think it just hit me. But yeah, I think accuracy matters, and it's got me kind of a little bit nervous about one of the two studs. Sounds like you don't like any of the studs, so we'll talk about Will Zalatoris.
Well, it's not that I don't like them. It's more so.
No, I got you. No, you don't. You hate.
I hate them personally. It has nothing to do with the golf. It's personal.
Wait till I text them.
Yeah,
in our back and forth.
Both old Willie and Todd boy.
Todd father.
My father. What?
Todd father.
Todd father.
Yeah, that's what everyone calls him. Yeah, everyone calls him that.
I didn't know that. Okay. Anyway, Todd father and Willie.
Your chemistry's on today.
We'll talk about them later. We're talking about Zalatoris in just 1 second. But first, every week of the NFL season, I will be doing a snake draft on FanDuel Live with some guy named Brandon Gdula and JJ Zacharyson on Friday afternoons at 3:30. We will go through a three-way weekly snake draft. Three-way found its way in there. I didn't write this. Thank you, Durs. I love it. We'll talk about slate strategy and help you get ready for week number 8. Plus, for those that tune in live, we'll be giving away a free ticket to the FanDuel Sunday Million right after the draft ends. For more information, subscribe to FanDuel's YouTube page or follow FanDuel across social media to make sure you don't miss it. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, make sure you go there and just subscribe to get the snake draft. We also have a waiver wire Q&A today at 3:30 with myself and JJ Zacharyson. Our Week 7 NFL recap podcast for DFS. Went up yesterday. You can find that by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. The preview for Week 8 is coming up on Thursday on the DFS feed and also live on FanDuel's YouTube page at 10 a.m. Eastern. Let's talk about current form because, as mentioned, no real course history to look at here with just one event and no shot link data. So we're just going to go with 3 current form guides for this week and start things off with Zalatoris. Will Zalatoris is one of those co-favorites with Brendan Todd this week. Todd, of course, the defending champ at this event. What do you see with Zalatoris, though, at 11-8?
We've talked about Zalatoris often in the current form section over the past few weeks whenever he's been in the field. We haven't seen him since the Shriners, but prior to that, he finished 6th at the U.S. Open with amazing tee to green play there in a really tough field. He was 8th at the Corrales Punta Cana. Missed the cut at the Sanderson Farms, but then bounced back to finish 5th at the Shriners. Naturally, that gives him really stellar form. Not a whole lot of PGA Tour data for him recently, but he does lead the field in strokes gained tee to green over the past 12 rounds, which I know is a really small sample, but I think it's probably safe to say Zalatoris is going to be one of the best tee to green golfers in the field this week anyway. He's 13th in total strokes gained over the past 24 rounds. The primary concern for Zalatoris is that this isn't just a distance course, and yes, distance always helps, but if he's too errant, he might not be able to score enough to contend. That said, I think outside of Brendan Todd, nobody's really close to his tier. That's reflected in the betting odds. For DFS, that's really, really enticing, that ostensible floor of just being better than the rest. So I think Zalatoris is not as appealing to me as Brendan Todd, but he's kind of scary to think that I just won't play him. So how are you viewing the big hitting Zalatoris?
So Zalatoris, like you said, is more of a bomber than anything. The good thing is it's not like he's like erratic, I would say, because he does rank 10th in good drives gained the past 50 rounds. He's not accurate by any means, but like he can either make up for it or maybe place it when he needs to, I guess. So I guess that's valuable. So if I'm choosing between Todd and Zalatoris, I know Todd's a more accurate golfer, and I know that he's a better putter. I also know he's better at birdies or better gains. Maybe I should just go Todd. I think that's the reason why I'm having issues falling in love with either guy is that I can poke holes in both of them pretty easily. Like Todd's approach has been better. His approach has been better. Definitely. It's been better. Credit to him. But it's still not like perfect. Whereas Zalatoris, like the putting on Bermuda, it's a very, very, very small sample. So like don't go crazy with this. But like it hasn't been great. He's not the most accurate guy. His birdie or better gained is like okay. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time falling in love with either right now.
I mean, I think that's fair. If you're trying to poke holes in this field this week, get ready for a lot of whatever.
We're gonna have some leaky balloons.
Yeah, because nobody is perfect. That's just what happens. I will say Todd is my preference. He is the only golfer who played in the Zozo last week, which should probably tell us a lot about the pedigree. Last year's winner, I mean, the highest salaried golfer on FanDuel, he's pretty much a lock to be 40% plus, I think, on FanDuel in terms of draft percentage. But I think he's the number one golfer in the field by a pretty solid margin.
Okay. I think, I think Todd makes sense. It's really hard for me to get enthused. We'll talk about him later on, I'm sure. But speaking of poking holes, Brandon, let's talk about Emiliano Grillo, because Emiliano Grillo has made 7 straight cuts on the PGA Tour, mind you, in 2020. Like, big things are popping for Grillo. He is also 8th in approach, and this is not a course that requires distance. So good things for Emiliano Grillo. However, it is still Emiliano Grillo, and this is not a bent grass course. This is a Bermuda green course, and he's legitimately terrible on everything that is not bent grass. He is $11,400. I know the field is not great, but like there is a pretty major negative with the putting with Grillo, and he's 11-4. So I'm having a hard time talking myself into Grillo too. I know like I don't know if I'm being irrational due to past pain that Grillo has caused me personally, but it's hard for me to get there. So are you higher on Grillo than I am, or is this just more justification to feel good about Zalatoris and Todd?
Yeah, I mean, if Grillo, I mean, we love Harold Varner the third, but if our like next kind of option is
tread lightly, baby, because I'm all in on Harold Varner the third this week.
Okay,
tread lightly.
So we love HV3,
mm-hmm.
but like if our next few options in terms of salary are Grillo, Maverick McNeely, Denny McCarthy, you really have to think about whether these guys are worth the salary. Yes, relative to the field, Grillo is a good play, but he's like a classic heat check guy where he's got fantastic ball striking, but the short game is terrible. Yeah. Leads the field in opportunities gained, which is a fantasy national stat that's basically birdie chances. We want birdies. He can get birdie chances unlike any other golfer in the field. Whether he'll convert them, it remains to be seen. Most likely not. So for the salary, I think he's a hard play to justify. And honestly, I'd rather bet him to win outright than I would play him because he could miss the cut very easily, but he could also, be in contention. With someone like that at the salary, what's that?
I'd rather do neither.
I mean, yeah, I'm saying if I had to pick one, I would rather bet him because, he could easily miss the cut.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting here is that 3 of the 4 golfers with the best odds to win are outside the top 100 the past 100 rounds in Bermuda putting. Like, that's frightening. And one of them is HV3, of course, because, we have to accept these. And so
he's less terrible than Grillo.
Most people are, yes. But if I'm going to take a dump on Grillo and love HV3, I should at least note that like HV3 is also bad in that same department. So I'm not going to use Grillo. I don't really feel too scared about that. Like he could do well, but like I know why I'm not going there, and it's because of the putting. So I'm probably just okay missing out if he does do well.
In fields like this, golfers have to be in this salary range. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily worth it.
Agreed. I like the way you phrase that. So let's move to your second current form guy. It's Peter Malnotti, who is $10,200. What do you see with Malnotti here? It seems like you may not be the only one who is interested in this guy right now.
Yeah, he's seen his odds shift on FanDuel Sportsbook already since Monday morning. As of Tuesday morning when we're recording, he was 42-1 on Monday. He's now 33-1, which is pretty significant. One of the biggest moves so far this week. His 3 most recent finishes were a 41st at the Corrales Punta Cana, 2nd at the Sanderson Farms, and 5th at the Shriners. Malnotti is a really strong Bermuda putter. He is 2nd over the past 100 rounds, and he's gained 4.5 and 5.7 strokes from his approach in his 2 most recent events. That's a bit abnormal, though, because he had averaged negative 1.1 in 10 events entering those. It's possible he's figuring things out, but it's also possible that he's just bound to regress and the irons were carrying him to his apex, and because he's not a great iron player long-term, those are bound to scale back. I'm kind of more in that camp where I don't think he's going to turn into a lights-out iron player all of a sudden.
Well, I think it's a similar discussion with Justin Seuss. Let's talk about him because he's made 2 recent starts on the PGA Tour, and both of those have been awesome. He was 14th at the Corrales Punta Cana. He was 8th at the Shriners, and there's no shot link for the Corrales Punta Cana, but at the Shriners, he gained 6.5 in approach. He was aided by 3.1 on the greens, and his off-the-tee play was not great. So Sue's another college stud, which is kind of why we can talk about short-term form because he's younger, and we talk about how those guys can make gains. So big gains would make sense. But these are gains from February to now because he did have some PGA Tour events back over the winter last year, and the numbers there were not good. And these are pretty major deviations over not a huge time frame, so I'm a bit skeptical here. So with both Malnotti and Sue, I'm a little bit hesitant. I think that there is a different guy in this range who I am very much more inclined to go with because we've seen him do well with his irons over a larger sample in Cameron Tringali. So I am having a hard time buying into either of these guys. Are you more open to Malnotti or Sue?
So the data and studies that I've read just show that you should buy into like small sample changes more from young guys than older guys. Malnotti's 33, Sue's 20. I don't know if Sue's really worth the salary, but if I had to pick one, it would be Sue because you could just easily play the narrative that he figured things out over the break. That said, I'm not particularly interested in either of them.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm not really interested in any specific golfers outside of the top like 8.
I am.
I love Max Homa.
Yeah.
I don't really feel great about too many other golfers.
Feel great is one way to put it.
Yeah.
Because I can't get there, but I feel okay about some other ones. And Sue and Malnotti are not those guys. Like you said, I'd agree. Like Sue is the one more likely to stick, but that doesn't mean I have to use him at 9-9 in a field like this. So I'm okay continuing to monitor and seeing if it regresses because the odds that it does regress are pretty high. So, we'll keep an eye on him for sure. But I think for right now, I'm okay holding off. So let's move to Wesley Brian. He's $9,600, and he's a guy we had talked about like a long time ago here in the HX. He's someone at least I used decently often, and I'd use him most often at courses where length was not required. And Brian creeping back into DFS relevancy now. What are you seeing with him at $9,600?
Yeah, we haven't seen a whole lot of him over the past few years because of a shoulder injury, and the super recent form is kind of spotty, not in the sense that it's bad, but more in the sense that he kind of plays like one event a month. He was 12th at the Sanderson Farms, his only event since mid-September. He did miss the cut at the Safeway when he did play mid-September. He's played once so far in October, once in September, once in August, and once in July. On the PGA Tour, but he's gained strokes from approach in all 6 starts since the reboot on the PGA Tour. Gained 9.3 at the Travelers, 5.0 at the Rocket Mortgage, at least 2.5 in 5 of those 6. That's why he's 4th in approach over the past 50 rounds if you look just within the past 2 years, according to Fantasy National. It's not the largest sample for him. He's not long off the tee. He's not particularly accurate in his return, but certainly trending up overall. Because there's not a whole lot of guarantees, do you have any interest in him, or are you just looking elsewhere, even in the mid 9,000 range?
I think any interest, I kind of have to have at least some, right? I don't think he's a priority in that range, but I think because the floor on everyone is really low, I am okay taking swings on guys who have access to a ceiling, and I feel like Brian does have access to a ceiling. So I could see him being a guy I use in tournaments, like kind of as a way to get off of like other golfers who I may have too much exposure to. Because I think that this is a week where I want to have a tight core, even if it does burn me. Like I think this is a great single entry week, just because there aren't a whole lot more than 6 dudes I want to use. So I think this is a tremendous single entry field, personally. And Brian, what?
It is a tremendous single entry field.
Yeah, and I think that like Brian wouldn't be in that discussion for me. But if I'm entering for tournaments, building around that small core, I would view Brian as a way to differentiate from golfers who I may have too much of. I was talking about Tringali before. I do like him. There are some other guys in kind of that range who would be interesting to me too. So I would say he's a differentiation piece in tournaments. Is that a fair way to phrase it?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm not sold on him. I'm not really sold on too many guys, like I said. So it's going to be more of a – we talk about this frequently, but it's going to be, are you locking in your favorite studs or your favorite values? For me, it's pretty clearly my favorite studs.
It will be for me too. We just have different studs we're going to be locking in. So
I don't know, based on your player picks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're going to have the same studs.
I mean, maybe not the same.
Okay, no, I'll take that.
I like the 2 guys you picked.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to one more golfer who I think might be missalaried. It's Ale Schneiderjans. It seems like may have been missalaried. He is $7,000 despite being 100-1 to win. So I think it's at least worth discussing him. Schneider-Jans has been golfing on the Korn Ferry Tour recently, but he hasn't been awful. He did miss 3 straight cuts, but before that, he had 8 straight top 35 finishes, and one of those was not on the Korn Ferry Tour. It was actually a 5th at the U.S. Open. So Schneider-Jans, I think, is undersalaried. That part is not up for debate, but there's also really good odds that he misses the cut. So the odds he busts, if he were to be popular, are pretty high. So I think that, like, if I'm building a cash game roster, I am considering Schneider-Jans for it. I'm not saying I need him in there. I am considering him for that. But like, if he winds up being popular as a result of the salary in tournaments, I would be okay being very underweight or just fading entirely. How about you? Do you think that Schneider-Jans is undersalaried, or how are you viewing this one?
Yeah, he's probably undersalaried to I'd say a significant degree. I don't necessarily. I'll put it this way: if he wasn't 7,000, I wouldn't consider using him.
Correct, and I think that's a big key for tournaments.
Yeah, I would say for a cash game, because there's not a whole lot of safety anyway. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up the fan share tags, but I'm not quite there.
They tend to focus on a different site. I would doubt that Schneider-Jans is undersalaried in both. So I'm not sure they will actually be super representative.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll use him. I recommended him on numberFire because of the salary.
Okay.
I think that he's not significantly worse, if at all, from a lot of the other golfers in that range. You might as well take the savings.
Yeah. And I think the key for Schneider-Jans is that I do like the 10,000 range, and using Schneider-Jans allows me to get there again for like my third golfer. So I think because of what he gets me access to, I think that I'll go there in cash games. I don't think he's a must-use in cash games, though. Do you agree with that?
Ollie Schneider-Jans is not a must-use in anything right now.
Would you pick him or his brother straight up? Who you got?
Ollie. But
there are two Schneider-Jans. There are also 2. Isn't there a father-son combo in the field too? The Funks, maybe?
I don't know, Jim.
Fred Funk and Taylor Funk are both $7,000. If we go, can we stack the Funks and the Schneider-Jans and then just go with Todd and Zalatoris?
You can.
I like to stack names. I think that stacking like Brandon Cooks and Jared Cook this past weekend, I had that more than I should have because it didn't pan out. I love it when I get to use William Byron and Eric Jones in the same lineup because of Byron Jones. When I write it on my sheet, that's the cornerback for the Dolphins. I love combinations. Busher. That's an amazing combo. So I am all in on the name combinations. Do not do this if you're playing for actual money because that would be very foolish of you. But I'm just saying, you can have some fun.
Is this what that NASCAR podcast is like?
It's just me recommending Bush, and Busher every week.
You got the
Busher, Byron Jones.
Got the Pepe Sylvia layout, trying to make the connections between the names.
Well, I don't even need that because it's very clear the way that I explain it well. I explain it well, Brandon. It's perfect. How can you possibly not understand the Busher strategy? Let's take a look at what bookmakers are saying about this week. I'm cutting you off because this is going.
If you want if you want names, name connections, probably Henrik Stenson, Henrik Norlander this week.
I actually could do that.
Good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one. Okay, I'm on board with that one for sure. Let's.
You play the Funks. I'll play both Henriks in our head.
I think I might have had one lineup that had Marquez Callaway and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. No, I didn't. I don't think I did. I don't remember. Either way, let's talk about bookmaker odds. Will Zalatoris and Brendan Todd are the heavy betting favorites entering the weekend at FanDuel Sportsbook. Zalatoris is 11-1. Todd is 12-1. Then it dips all the way down to 22-1, where we get to Doc Redman and Harold Varner III. Emiliano Grillo is 26-1, followed by Denny McCarthy at 29-1. Charlie Hoffman and Christopher Ventura are 31-1. Then we get to a group, or a gaggle, some may say, at 33-1, including Cameron Tringali, Henrik Stenson, Justin Sue, and Peter Malnotti. So, Brandon, we were kind of alluding to this before, but we'll often discuss whether it's a week to build around the studs or the value plays. As much as I am not drawn towards the studs, I am less drawn towards the value plays. So I think it's a week where we build around the studs. Which studs do you have the most faith in this weekend?
Brandon Todd, Harold Varner, Doc Redman.
Okay, so we are on the same people.
Yes.
As far as Varner and Redmond go, because they are my two player picks, and I think that they are both awesome. And the reason that I am drawn towards them is exactly what we said earlier in the broadcast, where I want golfers who are accurate but also make birdies, because I think that's like sometimes not a super common combination. Because like if they're Jim Furyk, I don't want a guy in the Jim Furyk archetype. I want someone who can be accurate but also make birdies. And, HV3, you don't think about accuracy for him, but he's 29th there. He's first in birdies or better gained. Doc Redman is 13th in accuracy, 11th in birdies or better gained. So they both fit that. Technically, Denny McCarthy does too. He's 26th in accuracy and second in birdies or better gained. So I'm actually McCarthy is very much not a heat check kind of guy because he is so dependent on his short game. But as we said before, his approach has been getting better at times recently. So I would say I like all three of those guys, and they're probably going to be the three main ones I build around over Todd and Zalatoris. That could be very stupid, but I feel like, again, that's kind of the way I'm just drawing this week.
So is Varner, Redman, and McCarthy?
Yeah. I think that McCarthy fits it well. Like if I were not considering popularity, I would put Todd and Zalatoris above McCarthy. But given the fact that Todd and Zalatoris at the betting odds are probably going to be far and away the most popular golfers, I am okay going to McCarthy here.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm always one willing to fade the chalk. I just think that Todd is even at the salary, because the salary is only $700. Yeah, I think that even when you factor in popularity, Todd's a really strong play.
I mean, I think he's like a strong play, but I think that I'm okay going with less strong plays in a field where I don't feel great about anyone. So I think that's kind of the thinking there for me. And I'm someone who is usually very willing to swallow the chalk. I think for this week, I'm going to play things a little bit different, at least from that perspective. But I'm glad we're both on the same page here with Varner and Redmond. Which golfers' odds have shifted the most and most significantly since things opened yesterday?
Maverick McNeely fell from 37 to 41. Charlie Hoffman, 28 to 31. Jonathan Vegas, 50 to 55. So those are all lengthening odds. As for golfers whose odds have shortened, it's our boy Doc Redman, 27 to 22. Justin Sue, 40 to 33. Peter Malnotti, 42 to 33, as I mentioned already. Bo Hostler, Kyle Stanley, 90 to 70. Kramer Hickok and Rob Oppenheim, 100 to 80. Andrew Putnam, 130 to 100. And Mark Anderson, 210 to 130.
Doc Redman shortening from 27 to 22 is, I think, justified is the word that I would use for that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I like Redman a lot.
Yeah.
If I had to, I don't love betting him at 22. I much preferred what it was.
Yeah.
But I still think he's in contention there.
I think so. I did not dig too deep into Kyle Stanley. Again, it may be like a Grillo thing where it's like the past pain has blinded me to everything. I can understand the case for Kyle Stanley because the approach play is obviously tends to be good, and it's not a distance course. So although I did not get to Stanley, is he someone who is on your list in consideration for this week or no?
He is literally in my player picks.
I closed the sheet after you had Homa. I did not look after that. So, okay. We'll talk about old Kyle Stanley later on then.
I mean, I can talk about him now, but...
No, we'll talk about him later. Which lower salary golfers have odds that stand out to you?
So basically everyone in like the low to mid 9,000 range is around 55 to 1, which is pretty solid. But if you want to look at 9,000 or below, that'd be Brian Stewart and Anirban Lahiri at 65 to 1. Joseph Bramlett's also 65 to 1. Sorry, Joseph. Kyle Stanley, Bo Hostler, Max Homa, Matt Jones, all 70 to 1. Then if you want to dig a little bit lower yet, in terms of, there's obviously golfers at 80, but low salaried guys who are at least 100 to 1. Bronson Burgoon, Seamus Power, Ryan Brem, KH Lee, all 8,100 and 100 to 1. Andrew Putnam is 7,600 and Ollie Schniederjans is 7,000.
I feel the need to point out that the Burgoon pontoon actually has like okay splits on Bermuda.
Yeah. I'm not there yet anymore. I've jumped off the pontoon and into the river.
You prefer the river over Bronson Burgoon?
I'd rather jump into a river as someone who can swim marginally okay than play Bronson Burgoon at this point.
It's not out of consideration for me. That's what I'll say. That's how I'll phrase that.
Like, I can swim, but not well. And if there's a current, I don't know, but I'd rather not play Bronson Burgoon anymore.
Okay. Is there someone we can do? No, there's no one there. No, I was gonna see if we could make this into a bet, but I don't want anything there. I want no part of this range. I think that Burgoon is at least interesting though.
Yeah, I mean, you can do. I mean, like if you have to play someone in this range, he would be on the short list, but there just isn't a whole lot there right now. He's not quite the same golfer that he was when I coined the term. The Burgoon pontoon. I mean, last swing season, 19th at the Greenbrier, 6th at the Sanderson Farms. Not quite the same right now.
Just a beast. We'll get back to it. Don't worry. Weather. We actually could have some impactful weather for this week. On Thursday, the winds will be below 10 miles per hour the entire day. However, there is supposed to be rain starting somewhere around noon that could get things pretty wet. It'll impact the second wave, and that rain is going to continue in the day on Friday, early Friday, and it's going to bring heavy winds with it. So the wind speeds will be around 18 miles per hour early in the day on Friday before lowering in the afternoon. And based on this, it does seem like there will be some sort of benefit to playing early in the day on Thursday. You avoid the rain Thursday and the wind on Friday morning, but as always, it's possible this changes. We're recording Tuesday morning, so check back on Wednesday night. I know Kevin Roth of RotoGrinders generally does golf weather, so I check back there because he's an actual meteorologist. I'm just some idiot reading dark sky weather. But, we can also play, suspend, and stuff like that, in which case the edge would be nullified. But regardless, I think as of right now, I am okay stacking tee times, favoring those teeing off early Thursday. I will check back on that Wednesday night, but I think as of right now, I am okay with doing this. Brandon, in this field where we have limited options, are you okay doing this as well?
Yeah, I don't typically dig into weather too much, which is probably a big flaw in my process. But like you alluded to, I mean, we don't know if when exactly things are going to get. They could get rained out. Everyone could just play their Thursday, Friday on Friday.
Things getting rained out is painfully familiar to me with NASCAR DFS now stretching into its third day because they can't get a race in Texas. So I am very aware that weather can be detrimental to my happiness.
So they couldn't even finish yesterday?
No, they're scheduled to start up at noon today. So I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Did they have the blow dryers?
They did. They're called the Air Titans, actually. Let's give them the proper respect.
Sorry. Air Titans. We all have a back and forth, me and the Air Titans. But yeah, I do think that this is a week where I will factor in weather more than usual. Probably just try to stack splits, like tee time splits, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I don't typically do that because it's very hard to guess the weather and how exactly that affects things. But it could be one of the few legs up we can get this week.
I think so too. If it pushes me off of guys I really like HV3, it'll be tough. But I think in this field, it's worthwhile. It would lower my enthusiasm around single entry if all the guys I like, though, wind up drawing poor tee times. Regardless, let's move into our player picks here for the Bermuda Championship. We've talked about plenty of golfers we don't want to use. So let's talk about the ones we do want to use, starting with you, Brandon, in the upper tier. Who stands out to you based on their salaries at FanDuel this week?
I'm going to go with Brendan Todd. He's my favorite stud for the week, even at 11.9 on FanDuel. He's, just like I said, pretty firmly in the top tier for me. He won here last year. He's the highest salary golfer historically. That means he's going to be the most popular golfer in the field. That does cause some concern, but I still think that you can play Brendan Todd. You just have to decide if you're going to be overweight in line with the field or underweight. I would recommend being either underweight or overweight. But I mean, like I alluded to before, he's just good for this field. He was the only golfer who played the Zozo last week, so that should probably just tell you plenty about where Brandon Todd is relative to all these other guys. He is second in this field in fairways gained, 13th in good drive rate, 5th in Bermuda putting. He is 56th in strokes gained approach, but I think if he just needs to hit fairways and make some putts, that's what he does.
Yeah, looking at his Fantasy National page and looking at his recent events, like, he always loses off the tee, but like that's probably because of the distance issue. The approach play, he's had spike weeks. It's just like I'm having a really hard time getting there. So I think like even for cash games, I might not use Todd. I don't know. Like that, this could just be me being very foolish, but it's hard.
I will use Brendan Todd in our head-to-head. I can say that with confidence.
And like that's probably the better play. But I'm just like, it's hard for me to get there. So instead, let's talk about Harold Varner III. We know he has issues as a putter, so there's definite risk here. But even with the putting, Varner actually leads the field in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. And in essence, that is a putting stat. Like there is putting factored into that number. He is second in approach and 29th in accuracy. So everything outside the putting has been awesome for Varner, which has led to all those birdies. There is risk here because he can go off the rails on the greens, but I am good with that risk in this field at 11.5. Brandon, your thoughts on Harold Varner III this week?
Like him. He actually was the favorite when I simmed this one out.
Okay.
Not substantially so, but he was the favorite. Leads the field in strokes gained tee to green. All you can ask for is that the putter is just even okay, and he's going to put forth a good DFS showing. I don't know if I'm yet there, even with. I don't know if I can bet him to win outright. I just don't know if it's quite there yet.
Yeah, totally understandable. I think that makes sense, but I think that, to me, he's my favorite guy in this field. I said that I like the 10,000 range a lot, so let's talk about two of the guys who I like, and part of the reasons that I like that, I actually considered putting Henrik Norlander as my second player pick in the upper range. Went with Doc Redman instead. So you have Norlander, I have Redman. I think both, though, are really good plays.
I do prefer Redman, but Norlander is 10-6, 40-1 to win. He's 9th in fairways gained. He is 31st in Bermuda putting. He is 10th tee to green because he's 25th off the tee and 14th in approach. He's 25th in birdies gained. I mean, that's pretty strong for a field like this, for a salary like this. I think he's a near core play. I want to get to Doc Redman, but if I can't, I'm fine if I have to settle for Henrik Norlander.
Well, when I said that I was interested in Schneider-Jans, this is part of the reason, because if I use Schneider-Jans, I can get Varner, Redman, and Norlander in the lineup and feel pretty okay about it. And I think that's a pretty big appeal to me.
Yeah, I think that's a big plus. You know, usually, and this will sound dumb, but usually there's a big gap between the 10,000 and 9,000 range. I do think there is. I think that's accurate this week. So I do think that Schneider-Jans gets a little bit even more of a boost if that becomes the difference maker.
Yep, I agree. The reason I had Doc Redman here is that like I've used Doc Redman in much tougher fields, so why not? And the stats are amazing, very similar to Norlander, where Redman is 13th in accuracy, 3rd in approach, and 11th in birdies or better gained the past 50 rounds. So top 13 in all three of those stats. He's almost exactly neutral as a putter on Bermuda, in a small sample, obviously. So it's possible the floor here is good as well. I like the ceiling for Redman. So I think that Redman is a great second set at 10-9. And I think I'm really drawn towards that build of Varner, Redman, Norlander, Schneider-Jans, and then you figure out the other two. Like, we're not giving out lineups here, obviously, but I think that type of build, getting in a third guy in the 10,000 range, I find that really attractive for this week. Any additional thoughts for you on Redman?
No, I mean, he was like number one in my stats model. I just feel really good about him. I'm going to try to get probably Norlander and Redman into my lineup, and if not, I will go with Adam Schenk.
Okay, talk to me about Schenk then.
He's 10-1, and for like the 8th time this year, I've picked someone who's 10-1 in the mid-priced
our
range.
Podcast, our rule, baby.
Yeah, but I think Schenk is firmly in play. A very good driver of the golf ball. He is 5th in strokes gained off the tee. because he's pretty balanced. He's 38th in distance gained, 30th in fairways gained. The other data, not quite as good, I won't lie. 60th in approach, but he is 21st in Bermuda putting. He hasn't missed a cut in 9 total events since June. I've played Shank quite a bit. I see no reason to jump ship now, so I'm in on Shank.
Yeah, I think that Shank makes sense too. I just like him a little bit less than I like, the guys slightly higher. But I will say, we were talking about Peter Malnotti and Justin Sue before. I'd rather go to Shank than them. Do you agree with that?
Yes, that's why I picked Adam Shank.
Shush. I also like Cam Tringali. Tringali is not the world's most accurate golfer, which is a concern, but he's 45th in good drive rates. So when he does miss, he doesn't miss by a bunch, and that makes me feel better because everything else here is really good. He is 6th in approach and 13th in birdies or better gained. That's while also being 44th in Bermuda putting. Tringali has been inconsistent since the end of the COVID layoff. He's made the cut in just 5 out of 8 events, but he did crank out a third at 3M Open. He was top 20 at the Shriners. I think he works at 9.8. Brandon, I've not heard you mention Tringali yet. Is he someone you are considering this week?
Yeah, considering the putting's been really good, which is a little concerning. But the irons, they kind of come and go, but they're a little more, positive than negative. We were in on Tringali for like months in a row. It felt like I think I was kind of off of him for a bit, but I think I see reasons to go back. So I definitely don't mind him in a field like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the right way to view him. So let's move down to your second mid-range play. Who else do you like here?
Speaking of irons and being maybe a little consistent, but also being very good, that'd be Sepp Straka. He at times can show that he's like a cut above a field like this because he can be really good with his iron play. It's not always there though. He's 35th overall in approach play over the past 50 rounds. He's 14th in birdie or better rate gained. But if you dig back through his like event by event log, it's again up and down with the irons. But I think in a field like this, without a lot of certainty, you can gain a lot by just playing someone who's a little more volatile because he should be able to score if the irons are there, and he should be able to score really well. So I do feel pretty good with Straka. I will probably try to avoid like the low 9,000 range overall and just jump down to like the 8,000 or 7,000 range for a change. But Straka, I do think is a strong play for going a little bit more balanced.
Yeah, I think that I like your thought process there of embracing volatility if they can hit the high ends, and like having those spike weeks in the approach allows you to hit those high ends. So I think that Straka makes sense for a field like this too, and I would consider him at 9.5. But I prefer Chesson Hadley at 9.2, a little bit cheaper. If things don't go well, double down and see what happens. I've used Hadley plenty, and it has not worked out, but whatever. The stats profile is pretty fun. He is 26th in accuracy, 15th in approach, 7th in birdies or better gained, and 23rd in Bermuda putting. So, actually really well-rounded. He's been hideous in his 2 October events. The stats are really bad there, but as you always say, we should trust the longer-term form over recent events, and Hadley's longer-term stats are really good. He's 9.2. So I've leaned on Hadley a lot with bad results, but I'm going to do it again here in a lesser field. So I'm going back to Chesson Hadley, Brandon. Is that a foolish move on my part?
No, I like him. You can always bump him up on accuracy tracks, can make birdies, and he's solid in Bermuda putting. So I think that's kind of all you can ask for. This should be a Chesson week. Should be.
Maybe.
Should
one.
be.
All I need is a decent outing, Chesson. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's move to the value range. I had trouble finding 2 guys I want to talk about here, so it was rough, which I think, again, is another mark in the Schneider-Jans department where I can just avoid this range, which is kind of attractive. So what are you seeing here below at $9,000 and lower?
Max Homa. He's a near core play. He probably is a core play for me at 8,600. I think he's better than the salary. He has better win potential than a lot of guys down here. He's 18th in strokes gained tee to green because he's 10th off the tee, 27th in approach. Is 102nd around the greens, but if you're relying on just the wedge play from Homa, it's probably not going to be going well regardless. You just want him to hit fairways and stick it close with the irons, which he definitely can do based on his profile. He's not super accurate. He's 72nd in fairways gained over the past 50 rounds. He's not particularly elite on Bermuda. He's 62nd there of the past 100 rounds, but those aren't terrible for as good as the ball striking is. So I like Homa a lot. Probably going to bet him outright as soon as the show's over.
Homa would have been one of my player picks had you not taken him, so I agree, and I think that he is a solid option here, and he would be my favorite, I think, below 9,000. Instead, I'll go with Brian Stewart here because Stewart isn't really a guy who can hang at a distance course, but this play should suit him pretty well. He is 6th in fairways gained as opposed to 126th in distance. He is 72nd in the field in approach the past 50 rounds, so that's not good, but it seems like a lot of that is still looping in to pre-COVID events where he lost a combined 12.5 on approach. Since then, he's been solid. He has gained on approach in 8 of 12 measured events. So Stewart should hit fairways. He should gain on approach. He's also 34th in Bermuda putting, and I think that that's pretty interesting. So the upside may not be great, but he did finish 3rd at the Safeway. So for 9,000, I think he could do a lot worse. Brandon, does Stewart stand out to you at all or no?
Stand out, no, but could you do a lot worse, like you said? Yeah.
Okay.
I see the case for using him, but I don't particularly think I'll get there. So he's just kind of one of those guys where I'm not going to talk you out of Brian Stewart, but I'm not going to play him myself.
Okay, so let's go to your second low salary play, a guy we alluded to before. A heat check favorite is back. Brandon, talk to me about Kyle Stanley.
Kyle Stanley, 8,800. I listed him second because I prefer Max Homa. Even at a lower salary, I would waste the 200 and play Homa frequently. But Stanley's not a safe play because of his putter. Over the past 50 rounds, he's 100 in strokes gained putting. He's also 100 in Bermuda putting over the past 100 rounds. However, he is 3rd in fairways gained. He's 1st in good drive rate. He is 20th in strokes gained tee to green, 25th in approach. He should be able to get close. Whether he makes the putts remain to be seen, but I feel a lot better about rostering someone with those concerns at 8,800 than a much higher salary. Well, I think we do have plenty of those this week.
Yeah. With Stanley, the big red flag would be that he's 67th in birdies or better gained. But there are 2 factors that contribute to that. One is the putting, obviously, but the other is distance, and the distance doesn't matter as much this week. So if there is one less factor that is preventing Kyle Stanley from making birdies, I feel better about him than I usually would. Is that a flawed thought process there?
No, I mean, I love data. I love digging through all of the stats, but in a field like this, we just at a course like this, the data can be misleading at times because
take that for data.
Yeah. Because if it's not adjusted, for field strength or, the type of course, it can be not necessarily the most helpful. It can be a little bit misleading, but I think that applying that to Kyle Stanley puts him in a pretty good position for this week.
Cool. I can get behind that for sure. I'm always open to Stanley, and then maybe I'll use him this week too because, why not? He's our boy. My second value play is someone you actually alluded to with having odds that were shortening and Rob Oppenheim, and he's really bad off the tee, bad, which masks an occasionally decent approach play. I know it's a ringing endorsement, but his off the tee number should be less bad this week because he's 25th in fairways gained the past 50 rounds. That's compared to 116th in distance and 66th in good drive rates. So might not be a plus off the tee, but he'll at least be less of a negative. And he's shown some good irons recently. He has gained 4 or more in approach in 2 of his past 4 events. He is 48th in birdies or better gained when you count the bad driving numbers and the bad stretch with his approach. So, I can get there. I don't feel great about it. So I'd rather either go with Schneider Jans and avoid this range or go with a guy like Homa or Brian Stewart. But Brandon, any thoughts for you on Rob Oppenheim or just none at all?
I mean, he's been making cuts for the most part with some decent finishes like top 30s, top 25s or so. I don't think they're super high-end upside with all of the concerns. But if I'm not playing Homa, if I'm not playing Stanley, I don't really know where else I'm going in this range. Oppenheim is going to be one of the few places I would look.
That was the issue I had, is like, I don't know where else to go. So I don't feel great about it, but I think the go-to move is to try to avoid this tier, honestly.
I don't think that's true. I think I'm good with Homa and Stanley.
Well, no, I mean, like, because like I'm not going to use Homa in 100% of my lineups.
No, but you said avoid this tier.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
But like, okay, deprioritize this tier.
That's fine. I'm going to prioritize Max Homa a lot.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. I like Homa too, like I said. So, but it's definitely not my favorite tier.
We haven't
by any means.
What about Homa versus Hadley? We haven't had any bets yet.
You prefer Homa over Hadley?
Yeah, let's do it.
FanDuel points?
Yeah. I mean, we got to do something, right?
I'll take it. Sure. Why not?
All right.
Why would I not take that?
I don't know. I'm laying the juice.
It's hard though, because I never want to root against Max Homa, because like his Twitter game is really good. So like it's kind of like this is not totally parallel, but it's like the Patrick Mahomes dilemma, where I never want to put myself in a position to root against Patrick Mahomes, whether it be betting or anything else. And I don't want to root against Max Homa, but I will take that back because I like Chesson too. So I'll take it.
I mean, why not?
You won the bobble hat by the thinnest of margins, which means I'm glad we didn't start the bobble hat over again last week, which was the consideration. Let's let it roll to the Masters, baby, which means you get to pick first this week. We are going to go any golfer you want, and then any golfer who is, because it's a not ideal field, will go 50-1 or longer. Who do you want to pick first for your win picks this week?
Okay. 50-1, it still gets pretty.
Yeah, it's not bad. Great at 50 by any means.
Pretty bad. Okay, well, at this point, because I know you're going to pick Chesson, I will go Max Homa.
So you knew I was going to pick Chesson, but you still picked Homa?
Well, then I can get the Homa. I mean, you're not going to pick Brandon Todd. You hate.
Yes,
Brandon
I am. Because the odds don't matter. The salary doesn't matter. Popularity doesn't matter. Those are the biggest drawaways for me with Todd. So I'm going to take Todd.
Okay. Well, then he's not going to win.
Excuse me. Who has more wins this year?
Are we including the Tour Championship?
Is it on your sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we are.
So Jim, just so anyone who's listening, Jim cuts off a lot of potential winners for me to catch back up.
I didn't cut off anyone this week. When was the last time I cut a winner off? When was the last time?
Bryson.
That was like in June.
Yeah, but I would have had a win.
You can't tilt about it from June. It's almost Halloween, dude.
I can tilt whatever I want to tilt.
No. There is a statute of limitations on tilt, and that has expired, brah.
Okay. I will go. I could go Zalatoris. I could go Redmond. I could go Varner. See, I thought you would have went like Varner instead of Todd based on how you were talking. And I just wanted to have fun. And
if I'm ranking them straight up, I'd rank Todd higher.
They're barely different salaries, but yet you like prefer Harold Varner in DFS.
I know that Todd is going to be almost double the roster rate of Varner.
But you said in a head-to-head you weren't going to play Brandon Todd. That's why I thought I would just get him.
I don't want to.
Well, I thought I'd be polite.
Sorry, you played yourself, bro.
This is what I get.
Yeah, you played yourself.
Let's see if I can get another. Well, I mean, I had John Rahm last week, but I bet on Patrick Cantlay. So
you had the hedge.
All I needed was for Justin Thomas not to win, and he did everything he could not to win.
I had Thomas in a lineup that was doing really well, so I would have appreciated it had he won, but that didn't happen. So thank you for rooting against me. I'll
go Zalatoris and get the 2021 Bermuda Champ. Zalatoris home is a fun combo.
Don't call it 2021. That trips me out. I know that there are a lot of places that call it 2021, but it just trips me out.
You can't tilt. The season already started.
It just happened now. Gosh.
The season already started.
Okay. The ESPN schedule calls it 2022-2021. So therefore, it's not 2021.
I can't follow what you're saying. I'm just going to ignore it.
Because I'm better. I have Todd and Chesson. You have Zalatoris, and I forgot who you picked already.
Homa.
Okay.
I feel
so you have Homa and Zalatoris.
From a fun standpoint, I feel pretty good about my chances.
Chesson is fun. ish, kind of, So we actually do have we had the head-to-head bet with them, and they're going head-to-head in the win bets.
Yeah.
Win picks.
I just didn't think you'd take Brendan Todd because you seemed like you hated him. I was just trying to do a bit for the show.
Again, I hate him personally. I don't hate him personally. I don't know anything about Brendan Todd. So just to be totally clear, I have Todd and Chesson. You have Zalatoris and Homa. I almost forgot again, but I remembered. You have Homa. Brandon, any final thoughts for you today before we close up shop?
Jim's a snake. That's one.
We do a snake draft. You know this. You know I'm a snake. Come on. This is on you for not knowing that I would do this.
I think, frankly, if you want to fade Brendan Todd or Will Zalatoris, all the power to you. They're not necessarily locks, but I do really like Brendan Todd relative to the rest of this field. So I will go with Brendan Todd, I think, being overweight this week.
I will say that if Todd is in the early wave and Varner is not, I will happily go Todd in cash games. So that's worth caveating.
Just changing your story.
Flip-flopper, baby. Flip-flopper. It's election season. I can do whatever I want. It's the rules. Sorry. You
can't. I don't know. We'll talk about it off the air, I guess.
Okay, you want to keep tilting? That's fine. You can tilt. When Todd wins, it doesn't matter. I'm going to win the win picks. So
yeah.
Tilt then,
sure.
bro.
Yeah.
Tilt then. Yeah. That is all that's. I'm excited for when Homa just wins and nullifies all this. That is all the time that we have for today. But as always, we are back again later this week. We'll be here on Thursday to preview NFL Week number 8. You can find that on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed and also live on the FanDuel YouTube page at 10 a.m. Eastern. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I'm at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your DFS lineups and your bets for the Bermuda Championship. We'll talk to you again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.